And hello, everybody. We are live. The Tim and Joe Show. It's every night, every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We are here talking about whatever cool stuff is going on this week or whatever uncool stuff's going on this week in the RPG tabletop scene. What's up, Tim?
Not too much. How about you, Joe?
Hanging in, man. I'm hanging in. Had a good day today. Had a good day. People came over, family, good meal, the whole bit. It was nice, you know. So,
very cool.
Yeah, it was just a chill day. Yeah, what'd you do?
I watched my Steelers lose a little bit ago, but you'll have that. You know, that's the way it goes when you're a football fan. There's only one team that wins at the end of the year, so
that's true. That's true. Who is the Steelers' evil enemy? Who's the arch enemy of the Steelers?
The arch enemy? Pretty much whoever's they're playing at the time, I guess.
Yeah,
but I guess they have so many different rivals. It's hard to pick one.
Yeah, I know that if you're a Giants fan, you must hate the Dallas Cowboys. You know, stuff like that. I mean,
I think that goes across the NFL. I think if you were not a Dallas Cowboy fan,
you have to hate the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, nobody likes the Dallas Cowboys too much unless you are one.
Yeah. Now, I used to watch it when I was a kid. I'm not a big sports guy, but the one thing I did enjoy was John Madden. I love that guy.
Yeah, he kind of what do you call it? He was beyond the NFL. He definitely became his own thing.
Yeah, his brand, you know, is his uniqueness, is this whole way he spoke, everything he did. I mean, he'd be a great YouTuber, this guy. He'd get a zillion followers. You know?
Oh my God. He would have been fantastic. Yeah.
I watched my nephews play that John Madden whatever year football game on their Xbox. And I peaked at the Atari 2600. I'm done. At that point, I can't. Yes, that's enough controls for me. So I can't. I just watch him playing. But I really half enjoy just listening to Madden again. You know, he's just an entertaining guy.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to listen to him go at it.
Speaking of which, I don't think I told you, my brother, his kids got me an Atari 2600 clone because they know everything I got is old. So, really like this.
Is it one of those ones that has 300 games on it or 1,000 games on it or something?
It has a cartridge, and the cartridge has 10 games. One of note was Combat Missile Command, or the two of note, I think. So we've been messing with Missile Command, and just as in the old days, everybody's kicking my ass at Missile Command. So I'm, it's still fun to do.
That. Yeah, I was never that great at video. I liked playing them, but was I good at them? No.
Yeah. I remember it's. It's a playing with the arcade and your quarters in there and you try to stretch it out as much as you can. So you got to get better and better and this and that. And then the better you get, you practice at home on your 2600. So when you go to the arcade, you blow everybody away. It's fantastic. And watching my nephews play this game, teenage boys, and they're getting frustrated because it gets harder and harder. I said, man, that's how it was. That's how these video games were. They got harder and harder and harder, and then you died. I said, just like in real life. Life gets harder and harder, and then you die. Good life lesson here.
Yeah, the life lessons the video games taught me. Yes, so I never thought of it like that, but yeah, I guess so.
So it is.
Well, you know what they call it, the final screen in a video game. Is called a kill screen. So say you're playing, I remember watching a documentary about Donkey Kong. It was a weird video or a weird documentary, but it was about these two guys trying to get the high score for Donkey Kong, and they were trying to reach the kill screen, and that's what happens. It just the game shuts down after you reach that screen. So yeah, even in video games, even if you're doing well, you're still going to die.
Yeah. It's a good metaphor. It's the perfect metaphor, really. And GM Grimlore agrees. Just so I didn't. That is life. Yes. Mike. Yikes.
I know. We're starting out light, Mike.
Starting out good here, huh?
Yeah.
Starting out good. I mean, speaking of generational things, maybe we get into the first topic. Actually, you know what, Tim? You always want to start with, what did you do that was cool this week?
All right, the cool thing this week. Okay, it actually has something to do with you, which is very hilarious.
All right.
The funniest fucking thing I saw this week was watching the live play of Shadow Dark this past Friday.
Last Friday.
The game itself was fine, but then when the whole bottom row was asleep.
Oh my god, it's fantastic.
and then you got a close up. Tom. So
I got the picture. Let me grab that picture.
Well,
here.
It was great because like Rob was third, and he wasn't asleep, but he looked like he was not too far from it.
Then he always has that half asleep look.
Yeah, he does. Then you had your Johnny Fever guy laying down. You and Rob were kind of almost at the same angle, and then you had Tom.
There he is.
There's
Tom. Out like a light.
I like. And the funny thing is I rewatched it like 2 or 3 times to watch him slowly, like he was fighting it.
Yeah.
And finally, it just took him. Yeah.
Yep. He was done. Done. No, that was fantastic.
So that was I laughed out because I didn't even know about it yet.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and oh my god, I just laughed. And then I had to go back and rewatch it again and watch the progression of him fall asleep. So,
I have to do that now. I didn't see that.
To watch him struggle, you can see doing that head nod to the side, and he really, really wanted to stay awake. But
yep.
That was fun. So I have to say that was I don't know if it was the geekiest thing or the thing, but it was probably the most amusing thing I saw.
It was the old man thing. I mean, 11 o'clock is past.
I know. Rob was on it before that. Rob was like, "How much longer are we going to be? We've been playing for over 2 hours.
This is fun, but
right, yeah.
But I'm old and I got to go to work and my back hurts.
But it wasn't even a work day. It was even a weekend, and he was tapping out. Yeah, that was funny.
So my cool thing of the week I did was today actually. It was fun.
Oh, Vance just joined it.
Jesus!
Feature of the Shadow. Well, you notice Vance bailed before he even got to that part.
I know Vance was out, man. Yeah, all he knew was at one point I was sort of like I was out of the picture because we had split the group or whatever the hell. And I come back and Greg's like, "Okay, so Joe's playing Vance's guy." I'm like, "Oh, what? How long was I? Did I pass out? What happened?
What happened?" Surprised by it. Yeah.
I didn't even hear that he left, Jesus. Yeah, but my cool thing was I've been getting my older nephews to watch good movies. They're like 18, 19, 20, you know what I mean? That age range. And I said, you got to watch, before you die. They have no historical sense of the only thing they know, the oldest shit they've ever seen is the Marvels, right? So, this is it, right? So they get, every time they get a good one, I'm like, oh, that was good. So I know I've been telling you for years to watch it. Like I finally watched a movie with my brother's oldest son, Almost Famous, and he enjoyed the hell out of it. That's how Matt. I've been telling you to watch this for 5 years. So I'm like, what the hell? But anyway,
that was a good movie. Yeah.
I said to him, listen, we got to watch all these movies, but I want you to watch it with my mother, his grandmother, because The Godfather is her favorite movie. If you're gonna watch The Godfather, you're gonna do it once. Here's what you want to do. Watch it with her. We'll have a big thing. It'll be a big deal. So we actually did that today. And so my mother and my father, believe it or not, came over. My 3 nephews all came over, and we all sat and watched The Godfather. And I made my Aunt Gloria's famous, she came from Italy, her famous spaghetti sauce. Oh, my God, it was so good. First time I ever tried to make it. I found the recipe that I thought I lost in an old cookbook. I found it last year. I thought I lost that thing 25 years ago. So I found it stuck in a page of an old cookbook. So I made this famous sauce, and then, of course you got the, leave the gun, take the cannolis. We had cannoli for dessert. You know what I mean? I even got Francis Ford Coppola brand wine. He has a vineyard in California. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get a bottle of his wine. We had a glass of wine. It was just a good time. It was a good time to pass it along. 3-hour movie, which is the kids' attention span and all that was a whole different story. And
I get that. Yeah. Well, didn't you get you said the extended version?
I tried to. What I thought was an extended version. It was just a remastered, I think, 4K.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we got. It was a good one though. We got a really good one though. That kind of leads into the first topic of the day here. Let me figure out how to share the screen, and I will show you what that is. Share a screen and share that entire baby there. All right. So this article came up in the Hollywood Reporter. I thought it was interesting. Sopranos boss, talking about mobsters and all that. Sopranos boss, David Chase, he wrote the thing, created the thing. The Sopranos was a landmark story. It changed the way TV was done. After that came out, everything changed. And so this Hollywood Reporter article is quoting from a different article in the Times of London. I think the Sunday Times of London. And it was interesting what he was talking about, because he was mentioning how it is sort of a dearth of innovation and executives shitting on everything. And it was like, let me hear. I think no, I can't word it any better than he did. He says down here, in 1999, when Sopranos was a breath of fresh air. Back then, TV was ad-driven and formulaic. However, thanks to the subscription service HBO, he was able to run uninterrupted episodes an hour at a time. It allowed TV to feel as ambitious as cinema. All right. And then scrolling down here, he says, talking about everybody who passed, I made them all regret their decision of stupidity and greed. Back then, the networks were in an artistic pit, a shithole. The process was repulsive. In meetings, these people would always ask to take out the one thing that made an episode worth doing. I should have quit. But he was in his 50s, angry, frustrated, depressed. He was a jobless writer who wanted to make movies and made about 10 screenplays, he says, and nothing succeeded. If you were a TV writer, you couldn't drink the water in pitchers. As an alternative, he started on The Sopranos, and he got rejected by leading networks like Fox. And he says, I should have known a Real Mafia Wise Guy show would not happen on U.S. TV. If you think your grandmother is risk-averse, you should meet network people. Why did these channels not commission a Sopranos? Well, I could have done an idiotic mob show, a watered-down Godfather, by why would you cut his balls off yourself? On a network, I could not tell out there Italian characters, and there was sex, violence, and bad language. It was never going to happen. And he said, Chase shook his head and says, did anybody who turned down The Sopranos ever apologize? Never. That's typical of Hollywood. They never take responsibility and load it on the talent and bury him for not getting it. And then they go into what The Sopranos meant. I mean, it did change everything in Hollywood in terms of what you were able to, like Breaking Bad wouldn't have been out there near the wood of Mad Men if you didn't have The Sopranos. But Chase is thinking that era is over, which brings us back to the funeral. We're going back to where I was, he says. He takes a breath. They're going to have commercials, and he's talking about HBO and all these other guys. Advertisements are back on Netflix and Prime Video. And here's the point I thought of the whole article I really wanted to get into. And I've already been told to dumb it down. He talks about a show he has tried to make with a young screenwriter about a high-end prostitute forced into witness protection program. They're on their third draft and their fifth meeting and have been told the unfortunate truth that it is too complex. Who is all this really for? He groans. I guess stockholders? As the human race goes on, we're more into multitasking. Your phone is just one symptom, but who can really focus? Your mother could be dying, and you're by her hospital bed taking calls. We seem to be confused, and audiences can't keep their minds on things, so we can't make anything that makes too much sense, takes our attention, and requires an audience to focus. And as for streaming audience executives, it's getting worse. We're going back to where we were. All right, and then he talks about other shows right now. The thinking is that if what they're looking for, if viewers can follow something very simple and look at their phones at the same time, they will be happy. It is TV that allows for the use of a second screen, something unthinkable when watching The Sopranos. And if anyone brings up Succession as a counter to Chase, remember that the show started 6 years ago, so it is a funeral. Something is dying. And just going back to what I was talking about earlier today, my mother, my father, myself, we never looked at our phone once. The nephews all looked at their phone during the Godfather, and I kept like, hey, what are you doing? That kind of thing until the movie. I mean, this is the good part, but I didn't want to keep saying this is a good part because it blows the suspense that this is a good part coming up, right? They don't know that it's a good part, and they'll tell I say it, and I don't say it till they look at their damn phone. Right. So I think that it's interesting because I see that same sort of like thinking in RPGs. Look at 5.5. It's like pasteurized, homogenized, boring ass D&D. There's no creativity. You're not taking any sort of risks in there. There's nothing new or innovative about it. It's just rehashed, repurposed. Anything that's been cool or edgy has been ground off. And now it's just plain vanilla D&D. There's nothing There's nothing edgy about it. 5e was an innovation when it first came out, and ever since then, it's just been slowly modified, pasteurized, homogenized. Everything that was cool about it and unique about it has been bloated onto with the useless crap, add-ons, more of this, more of that. Just like the same thing happened in 3.0 and 3.5, the bloat. You know?
Right. I mean, that's pretty much been the evolution of pretty much every edition, I think. I mean, you get because you get all that additional stuff in there, and it waters it down.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what he's saying, but I think there's an ebb and flow. Just like, I mean, this is pretty much same but different of what we talked about last week with what's his face, what was his name, Ben
Briggs or something.
Briggs, yeah.
Talking about
how it's. I mean, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah,
but
the golden age,
and everything. But I mean, if think about it, I mean, didn't we think it was all done in 4th edition, but then it came back with 5th edition and took over start. So who knows? This just might be a lull, and then you get into more. That's the gaming part, and then as far as I'm probably not going to be a favorite, but I was never a big fan of Sopranos, anyways.
Ah, okay.
But I mean, I still watched. I think I watched up to season 5, so I know a lot about it, and I did give it a chance or whatever. But I'm just not a big mob person. But I know what he's saying, because now when you start adding advertising dollars into their, that's going to influence them now. Now, just like TV and all that stuff. But the thing is what he was talking about not being able to do. They couldn't do Sopranos on cable TV because they wouldn't be able to go through all the FCC regulations and that. That's why you love cable, because there was no restrictions on that. Where Breaking Bad, because they already had an experience. What was his name? The guy from X-Files who pretty much
Duchovny?
No. The guy who produced it and directed a lot of it.
Oh, I forget.
I can't think of his name, but he was already an experienced TV guy, so he knew how to get the grit in there by still playing by the rules. And I mean, I've seen other interviews with David Chase. Not my favorite person, that's for sure. He's kind of, I mean, he had the Sopranos. Never take that away from him, but what have you done for me lately? That was 25 years ago.
Yeah, not much. He doesn't need to, though. He made his money.
Exactly. But I mean, he's bitching about today, and I know he's running into it. And I might be speaking completely out of turn with this, but it's like anything. It's going to have its ebbs and flows, because eventually follow the money. If these subscription services start losing money because they have to change their content because of this ad revenue, then things are going to change, or people are going to find alternatives. I mean, that's how everything changes as we go, just like the 5.5 or 6.0 that's going to be coming out. Yeah, we're going to be moving to electronic versions, but
are we? Are we?
Not me. I mean, I won't be joining into that foray, but it's going to still happen. The change is going to happen, and whether that becomes a popular thing or not is dictated by, where the money goes and how well they, do it themselves. Because if they do it well, they'll get more money. I just don't see that happening.
I think it's a big generational change. I mean, I think that Wizards of the Coast right now, we 50-year-old dudes are the biggest purchasers of everything, because we have the money to purchase everything, right? The new players. I think I was listening to Professor Dungeon Master's video a little while ago, and he was talking about the same thing, and how everybody, people who are under 30 have never held dice and have written up a paper character sheet, whereas people above 50 hate going online and having to do it like that. And we all still rather roll dice and play in person, right? But it's a different generational thing. And when you integrate a phone or a tablet into your game, or any sort of device like that, the device not only becomes part of the game, this device is also part of your life. There's no division between the game and the life. And so it's completely natural to you to flip back and forth from your text message to whatever's going on in the game while you're right in the middle of this thing.
Absolutely,
and to them it makes no difference. It's like you and I communicating, passing notes in second grade, right, or whatever we did. It's the normal way to do things, and so you're sitting there thinking to myself, why aren't you paying attention to what I'm saying? But if they're not constantly stimulated with something, they and by that I mean if there's any sort of plot development or character development going on, if there's not a big explosion action, oh my God, you're under threat, you must hit something right now, or else they're going to turn away and look at the goddamn phone and check whatever snaps they got from their buddy.
Yeah. Well, remember they said that about our generation too, because remember when I remember distinctly everybody saying our generation would never be able to concentrate because we were all, MTV was like the big culprit.
Yeah.
Because it was short clips, and the quick, what do you call it? Quick delivery of information. So therefore they thought we would never, our, Gen X would be able to concentrate because we were too distracted by flash images and whatnot. So whatever they're doing now, it's going to be worse.
It is.
or better the next generation. It's just going to be different. I shouldn't say worse. It's just going to be different. It's just going to be a different thing.
But there will be a general lack of concentration. We have less concentration than our grandfathers did. You know what I mean? So in a sense, whoever the hell said that about us was right. We're just not as bad as the next generation.
Do we have less, concentration, or was it they had less distractions?
Yeah, less distractions. So you're easy to train the muscles to concentrate, right?
Right. I mean, because if you, I remember my grandmother when she would tell me stories all the time about living in her farmhouse. I mean, it was a big day when Grandpa brought home a rug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know.
That was the entertainment, sitting on the damn rug and listening to radio shows and stuff like that.
My mother had an outhouse until she was a teenager, and that was how they went to the bathroom in the backyard. So I
don't know about how you were when you were a kid. Like in my bedroom, I had a stereo. That was pretty much it. It was like, I had a stereo, the old record, album, the old kind album player, but there was no phone, there was no TV, that was all extra. Books. I mean, but had we had those, I don't know. It's one of those things. We would probably still be gaming. We'd just be gaming a different way. Yeah, because of our life experiences.
Oh, I mean, would gaming have grown as much as it did if we had all
that's
that crap?
That's the thing. Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I don't know if they would have had. I probably would have went down some horrible video gaming hole.
Yeah.
If I was, and then plus with all the drama with gaming, because at least back then when we were in gaming, for better or for worse, we were pretty much isolated to our small cells of gaming groups. So there was no drama other than what was in your little gaming group, and that was just because your neighbor was being a jerk or you were being a jerk. But it didn't become a social ramification of doing some sort of gaming thing. It didn't have some worldly experience. The thing you had to worry about is what a lot of us that are probably in this room and is like the main thing you had to worry about is like getting ridiculed by adults, beat up by other people who thought that your gaming made you less than or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, like I tell the kids that when we talk about games, like the thing you guys don't realize, we actually bled to play this game. I mean, I don't know how many times we had to, like my friends, luckily I was one of the bigger kids at the time, so I didn't have to worry about it. But some of my friends, they got beat up.
They're the bleeding at the bleeder.
Times. Yeah, right. It was horrible. I mean, the poor guys, they're running across the road and there's D20s, the dramatic slow motion D20 rolling down the sidewalk, tackled or something that.
Yep. Yeah, no, we were just the dorks. There was no abuse. It was just more social outcasts kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of more what we got. But just maybe to put a bow on this topic, the intro thing, I found an interesting person references interesting video. It was a George Lucas's Charlie Rose interview. He infamously called Disney, I think, white slavers, but that's not the point I'm trying to get at. He was talking about how corporations ruin art, basically, and I thought it was kind of applicable in terms of, this is the most corporate pasteurized, homogenized, corporate board approved edition of D&D we're probably ever going to see, because it's going to make or break the game. If it does well, we'll never see books again. It won't change that much because it's too expensive, right? Yeah. If it does bad, they'll sell it off to whoever the hell at some point and might get back shelved or not even used or updated. I don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
But I thought this was just an interesting interview, and I got a couple minutes of it.
I mean, it is interesting. Yeah.
So here we go. Tell me if you could hear this, audience, because I don't know if you could hear this. So this is my first time playing a live video here. I think it should work, but just let me know.
I can't hear anything, Joe.
You can't hear that, Tim? Audience, can you hear that? Anybody out there? Can you let us know? I played a few minutes of it. Anybody? Bueller.
Nope.
Mike didn't hear it. Damn. I am not sure how to make this thing.
We could have George Lucas talk, and we just do a bad lip reading.
Yeah, I'll just recite. I'll tell you what I'll tell you the gist of what he's saying as we go here.
There you go. You do the bad lip reading.
I'll just give you the gist of what the hell he's saying. I'm not quite sure why it's not going through. That's interesting. I'll have to figure this out. We'll do a test screening. Yeah, we'll have to talk to some experts about it. But so anyway, I'll hit play and I'll give you the gist of what he's. Actually, you know what? I'll just give you the gist of what he's saying here.
Give him the gist.
Right. So he's talking about how the American point of view is make money. The studios look at something and say, "Wow, like something like Star Wars, this is a license to kill. We can make a fortune on this." And what they do is not take chances, only do something that is proven. Star Wars came from nowhere. American Graffiti came from nowhere. There was nothing like it. Now, if you do anything, it's not a sequel or not a TV series or doesn't look like one, it's no good. We want something that's known. And that really shows an enormous lack of imagination and fear of creativity on the part of an industry. Corporations are not known for, maybe not Silicon Valley, but the old institutions are not known for being risk averse. Movies are not risk averse. Every movie is a risk, a big risk. I like to say, it's like the movie business is exactly like professional gambling. Good analogy here. Except you hire the gambler, usually some crazy kid with long hair, and I don't get this guy at all. Give him $100 million, and you say, "Go to the tables, come back with $500 million." That is a risk. Now the studios say, maybe if we told him that he couldn't bet on red, because we did market research and we realized that red wasn't, tried to minimize the risk. And you're hiring the kid to take risks, to be creative, to do things that have never been done before, never been tested. You have no idea whether they're going to work or not. That's completely the antithesis of what a modern big corporation is. They want to test things 360 ways. So that's what I wanted to get into there, because it's sort of a tie in the bow in this whole conversation. This is what's happened to 5e. That is why it's so bland. Or find a 12-year-old. Yeah, Mike. Sorry, guys. I'll figure out how the hell they'll have sound come through this next time. But it's what I wanted to hit on, because I think this is what we're seeing with 5th edition.
I know, right? But it's been done before. 2E took all the demons and devils out of it. I mean, I know. I think they lose perspective. That if you remember back in the 80s, I can remember, I don't know how many times I would go to the movie theater, and every fucking movie had like a, Rambo 3, Back to the Future 2, nothing, there was no fresh ideas. Everything was like a sequel to sequel to sequel. And gaming wise, we were losing the edge of it because of 2nd edition. So it all goes through its phases. Yeah, we had a really good phase there for a while.
We did. We had a good run.
We did, with great creative and stuff. And yeah, of course it's going to it's not going to be able to maintain, because if it maintains that quality, then we'll never know how good that quality is unless you have the down years. So I mean, it's just that's just the evolution of things, and you just have to, and then you just have to be aware where the next innovation is going to come from.
What do you think it's going to morph into? Because this is what I wonder.
God, I have no idea.
We never would have predicted where we are now in 2004, like Mike Merrill said. We never would have, thought, because 04, we had that 4th edition nonsense. It was like it was terrible. And so, like Mike Merrill said, 20 years ago, would you have thought we'd be here right now? Hell no, right? But we are going down. I mean, this is a product life cycle. This is natural. This is what happens, like you're saying. So, what's going to come of it?
Well, I'll just correct. It's not we are going down.
No,
D&D will go down.
D&D.
We will be. We'll be fine. We're just going to continue playing our games. Like I said last time, it doesn't matter what Wizards of the Coast does. It doesn't change my game. The only thing that I think Wizards of the Coast affects is because it's basically the gateway drug into tabletop role-playing games for the most part, as a majority. Not always, but as a majority. And I just, would like to see it presented in a, I guess, a good light instead of just the crap that they're putting. And my good light, I guess, is to keep the adventure and the fun and don't try to, what did the oatmeal, I think, is what. The oatmeal that because that's exactly what it is, But if they're exploring into gaming, then they'll see there's a lot more options. Because back in the 2E days, there was the options were significantly smaller than that. But
they definitely were. I mean, you had to be a real geek back then to get other options, to go to game stores and this and that. Now you just do a quick Google search and you're going to find 1,000 different options, and you can download them on the spot, right? So
super cheap too.
Yeah, different world. But main topic, the main topic
of today.
Main topic of
we need like one of those do. You got all your sound effects.
I do have sound effects.
You need to get the news wire whatever beeping noise that is.
How about this? At least we could do the main topic of the day. All right. That'll work. Right? At least we got them applauding.
Applause never hurts. No.
Yeah. Probably can't hurt them. I got it on. Fuck, I got it on loop. At least, why is it default to loop? Come on, give me a break.
Maybe it knows that you like to hear the applause.
We are egoists. If we're YouTubers, we have some level of ego. So maybe that is it. Maybe they figured, what the hell, right? Yeah. But I reached out. I saw this video. It's channeled by Loki's Lair on YouTube.
Loki's Lair, yeah.
And he did a good video, I thought, about ending his campaign. It was actually really, it was kind of excellent. And he talked about a lot of things that we all experience in the OSR. A lot in terms of why things work or don't work. Now, Loki's I don't know his real name, but he's a cool dude. I've been watching his video for a year or so. When I first started YouTube in earnest a year or so ago, a lot of people said, hey, you got the same vibe, style, feel, whatever it was with this guy Loki's Lair. You should reach out, hook up, do some joint shows. So I did. And he basically came back with, you're more old school, I'm more kind of new school. And he is. I mean, he's more a 5e guy, but he sort of branches out. He's a curious, inquisitive person, and he's checking out different styles, different games. And he's talking here about he's ending a D&D campaign. And he goes through the reasons why he ended it and what happened with the breakup and all that. And a lot of his summary of his findings, sort of a retrospective, and the reasons why it all happened and what he could have, should have done. He's grabbing onto OSR principles and concepts, right? And I'm seeing this evolution of he's a nice dude. I can't call him a 5e guy, but he's a newer guy than us, right? And I've seen this evolution of somebody who's really grabbing some OSR principles and whatnot. So I kind of like it. And I figured we could go through why he ended his campaign, because it's a really good video. And I reached out to him, and he says, he's glad you liked the video. And he suggested maybe we discuss a comment afterwards. That was because there was an interesting comment on the video. So, we could talk about that as well. A lot of comments on this video, like 170 comments.
Oh, did you get them?
Yeah, it kind of went really good here. So let me drop this in here. I will share the screen again for y'all, and then we'll hit start on it. Oop, not video file. Present, Share screen, and there we are. All right, this should work for you. Oh, son of a bitch! We're not going to be able to hear this guy, huh?
I was going to say, no, you're not going to be able to hear him.
All right,
Anymore.
looking for any and all tech support help, boys and girls. But I could do it. I could do the same thing I did before, and I'll turn on the clip. I'm sorry, the closed captioning here. Let me see. So let's see. Closed captioning is on. That's interesting. Any all what AV people who might know how to have a video play so you can hear the sound, please feel free to chime in for us, guys. But in the meantime, I have the closed captioning turned down. We could talk about it. Put your mic next to your speakers. Well, my speakers and there's nothing. I have a headset, Rob. So yeah. So Loki's talking about the YouTubers, talk about everybody else. Oh, they heard you typing, Tim, looking at the old the comments in there. So I'll just play the video unless we could figure out how to do this along the way, and I'll just tell you what he's saying, what he's talking about. Now, what I'm going to do, since we are going to not have any sound, I'm going to play it fast, guys. All right, so I'm going to turn up the speed. So, all right, let's see. Yeah, I think it already is actually turned up. Yeah, 1.5, but I'll have a double playback speed for you so we can read a little bit faster. All right, so for his players, and players were used to riding a railroad. Now he's running Barrow Maze here, and he's like, well, they weren't self-directed. So it's either you have to have self-directed players or you had to have DM throw out plot hooks. And he's mentioning how it's just kind of difficult to motivate his players to do anything when they're used to actually just, following along a railroad in like a 5e module. So again, he said a lot of 5e players here, and they're just, they're not used to being self-directed. I ran across that same issue when I was running a new group of people who were only used to running game store, that whatever they call it, our RPG society, whatever the new word for that is, where they run these modules that are pre-planned and pre-published by Wizards of the Coast, and it's a new chapter every week.
Yeah,
right. That thing.
Not sure. Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting because I look at that and I saw these kids, mostly young 20s, and everything I ever said, which is more background or anything else, they assumed was a plot hook and grabbed it and followed along. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he was just saying hi. You don't have to follow him out of town and stalk him like a weirdo. Little things like that. It was not a directive. But he's having trouble finding people who had, could make their own direction and go out there and seize the day, basically. Adventurers League, Shark. Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The Adventurers League it was. So he said it doesn't really show what you need in the player's handbook or the DM guide to sort of overcome that. They mentioned it might be an issue, but they don't really get into it. So that was interesting. So the first problem he had was just direction. The players need to set their own, or the DM has to throw them 1,000 plot hooks. They're not just going to go through otherwise, and you have to have a good group for that. Again, seeing an OSR approach to things, you know what I mean? A true sandbox means you have to have a DM ready to run a sandbox, or a players ready to be self-directed. Oh, you don't think it will play because I'm on a headset, man? Damn. I don't know how to do it otherwise. So we'll tinker with that the next time. We'll see how it goes. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So a couple of other things he gets into. Let's see.
I think one of the things he talked about too is didn't something derail his campaign? It was going one way and something happened and it took off in a direction that he wasn't ready for, or something like that.
Yeah. I think he's to get into it a little bit here. Let me stay there. All right. So you talk about players who get lucky with dice rolls, and somebody died, and the death derailed the story. And he says here, maybe the big issue was that he actually had a story to begin with, and it was a long form story. And that was the main issue, is that he actually had a story in mind. And because he had a story in mind and a player death came, it didn't help anything with the story. And he says, well, maybe the problem was that I had a freaking story in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially if you're running because was he running 5th edition or was he running
5e, I believe it was.
Okay.
So
I guess I wouldn't expect too many people to die in that either, because if you're playing an OSR game, you better plan on that.
Yeah, that's it. And in fact, what he gets into next is talking about the backstories of the characters themselves. He says, vast backstories creating atypical modern 5e characters. Try to give them a lot of personality, and that gets them way invested in their characters. And you're going to spend hours trying to create a story about themselves before the game even starts. You don't want them to die.
You're breaking up a little bit too, Joe.
About how you're not getting a person who's just coming in with a farmer, in the middle of nowhere guy, and because of that, when there is a death, it messes. With the players hate it, and so essentially his conclusion with backstories is if you're playing a game with a lot of backstory in it, or players invested in their backstories, and they start as hero and want to end as legend rather than start as farmer and want to end as maybe alive at the end of the day, right? Like an old school game, then you shouldn't really kill players if they're into that sort of a game. He actually calls it the illusion of death because you're just going to destroy the game for them,
Yep.
And so essentially what you're talking about is it's you have these players who are just want to be writers. I think, they just want to be a writer of a story of a fictional character, but they won't, whatever the hell it is, and they're invested in that character through this game. It's wish fulfillment or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those expectations you have to set from the beginning, especially if you don't know the players or whatever. I mean, you guys know coming into my game, being precious about your characters, or any of you guys, it's not going to bode well for you, possibly. I want you to appreciate your characters and develop a fondness for it, but after he's been through the shit, a few times. But if there is a cost, I mean, without the cost, then anything you do doesn't really have value. I mean, the way I like to run things, but I also get, if you have a group of players that you're just running, let's say some younger kids. Say I was running a game for, grade school kids, and I wanted to get them into the game. Am I going to be as deadly with them? No, I want them to enjoy the game, get interested in it and everything, and have fun with it. But then also when, if I'm playing with my usual crew, then pretty much, as you guys know, I'll roll right out in front of you. I don't fudge dice. And if you end up, what happened to Matt? He got smashed by a hill giant or something with a boulder or whatever and got squished immediately. That's what happens. And it's funny how many of you guys end up surviving, though. But I think his biggest thing is he didn't know how to end it after. Or was it he didn't know how to end it, or he didn't know how to continue it after that happened? Because those are two different things.
Yeah, I think it was more continuate,
Right.
He really couldn't go forward. He couldn't figure out what to do next. Like it didn't hang together anymore. Yeah.
Well, like you have, what's your number one rule for your characters? There are PCs coming into your game.
Oh, you are nobody from nowhere.
Right.
And you have no backstory, and that's why you are an adventurer. That's why you're going out there, knocking down crypt doors and killing skeletons, and the other thing I do too is you didn't come from anything that gave you specialized knowledge in jack shit. If you were a fisherman, you were a bad one. If you were a blacksmith, you just got fired, because if you had this grand profession, you'd be doing it. You wouldn't be making money as an adventurer. You'd be out there making money as a jeweler, And so many people just grab this background profession because it just gives them some bullshit mechanical bonus in the game. Well, I was a jeweler's apprentice for 8 years before I became an adventurer. Shouldn't I be able to tell you the value of that gem? No, motherfucker, you weren't. You were a dirt farmer. You were a nobody.
They were all dirt farmers, huh?
Yeah, you're all dirt farmers. Every goddamn one of you. If you were good at anything else, your guy wouldn't be out there. You're risking his life unless he's just a freaking lunatic. So
my phrase always is, you always start just below suck.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I wrote that. God, I wrote that in my blog years ago, and it was funny how many people were upset about that. They're like, I don't want to play just below side, and I get that. If you don't want to, then that's not then you want to choose a different system. Bless you.
Yeah.
You want to run because that's the game I like to run. This just, for example, like the one where we had that one-on-one game.
Yeah.
I mean, your guy was just this gnome digger tinker gathering his scraps.
Yeah.
The only thing I guess the only thing I gave you at the beginning was information.
Yeah.
And then I let you deal with that, because I don't like when GMs just throw me into the situation. Say I've been a dirt farmer for, you said 8 years.
Yeah.
Well, I would know at least something about farming them. And then I would at least know something about the immediate area I am. I would know stuff about the people, maybe surrounding villages, especially in my village. And I would have some knowledge of the politics within a village and how it works. It's not much, but it gives me a foundation to take this character and really build upon it. Even though I don't know anything really that adventure-y, I have knowledge now that I can take this character and try to leverage that to maybe build on it or give it something.
Yeah.
And
like give 20-page background handouts to you guys.
No,
I agree.
No, they're not for no. That's your world history.
That's a minor thing. Again, going back to the cell phones and attention spans. You must be a victim of the cell phone attention span.
Yeah.
It's only 20 pages, man. It's not hard to memorize.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I get what they're saying with that.
Yeah.
I think his biggest mistake was one, having that story kind of set already. Oh, that's right. He was playing in Barrow Maze.
Yeah, he was.
Now, that was the other thing there, because when I was watching that was the other thing. I would never base a campaign around a mega dungeon. It's just not. I find it difficult.
They get bored. Plus, I would be.
Yeah.
The other thing I was wondering is that how much self-direction do you need if the only thing going on is freaking Barrow Maze? Well, what are we going to do? It's Tuesday. Well, I guess we go to Barrow Maze. I mean, I'm assuming he gave him other hooks or whatever, not just Barrow Maze.
Yeah, I think he did mention that. Yeah,
but I'm saying is that even if there aren't any, it's like there's nothing else to do. It's like, I guess we're going to Barrow Maze then. You know what I mean? There's still something to do.
Right.
So you sound like you had a group of players that were just not a good fit. And he gets into that later too. I found a good workaround for this. I just yanked up the transcript, and so. He's talking about how, like you were saying, the dungeon master should set restrictions, and he starts going into here about playable classes and races, because that's how I am too. In terms of my setting doesn't support your bullshit class race combo. It just doesn't exist. Setting comes first. The world comes first, and what derives from that world is a subset of the rule system. You call it 5th edition, whatever edition you're playing, and that subset, whatever I adopt, and house rule the fuck out of, is what we're going to be, dealing with here. I know the video isn't showing or the captions. I just turned it off, so it's just me and Tim talking now. So I'm just sort of reading the transcript here.
Yeah.
So again, he gets into, you need to just tell them that ground zero, basically. This is, you're not going to be able to play a Tabaxi monk, but I have a human monk. You can't play this cleric of the god or whatever the hell. But then he gets into something interesting, Tim, where he does what you did with Greg, create your own god, and Greg created the
Puce, god of silence,
boredom and silence. Yeah, he went around shushing people like a librarian, so and I think you're going to do something then, aren't you? You asked
because because even though maybe the character, like when you came to me about being Snickle,
yeah.
First of all, I'm thinking, oh man, you're just going to be a dick to Matt. That's all this whole character. That's the whole purpose of this character.
Only 80%.
But I was like, but basically, my thought is, all right, Joe, you want to play that game? Okay, I'm gonna fuck with you. I'm gonna make you care about this character too, and just do this small thing, because it's the small stuff. Like we were talking about Thieves World last week, referring to that. it wasn't the big hero stories that I enjoyed the most. It was the everyday guy stories that I enjoyed the most. So doing that goal, but then getting that hints of adventure, and then like eventually being kind of pulled into it. And I think, where was I going with this one? But allowing you to become that gnome, because I originally I wasn't thinking of having gnomes in my campaign, but you really wanted to play one. So let me see if I can find a nook and cranny in there. I mean, gnomes don't take up much room. Let's see what we can work. Let's see what we can work with and everything.
I had a spacious one room in a tenement, 10 by 10, which was massive for my 2.5 foot gnome.
Right. But now I was able to carve out and I enhance my campaign because you wanted to play something different that I wasn't originally going to.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely let characters, if they wanted to be like a dragonborn ninja thing, I'm probably not going to go towards like a dragonborn so much. I'd stick mainly to the traditional races back in the day. But I want to allow players that ability to add influence, enhance my campaign as I go with it. Maybe it's not in a way, because I'm not sure what your thinking was during that campaign.
Well, what I wanted to do, Tim, where it came from was, first of all, yes, Matt hates gnomes, and so I'm going to pick a gnome.
And you took his favorite character or name of a
halfling. He played a halfling. Favorite character of all time.
Yeah.
So I said, Matt, what is your favorite character of all time? Just out of curiosity. He said, oh, that's why your email address. Yeah. I'm like, no shit. I'm like, you guys are such a setup.
I saw that question. I'm just shaking my head. I'm like,
oh God. So once I had the hook, which was bust mass chops, then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make something funny or fun or weird about this, because he said it was gonna be in a city and this and that. So I'm like, all right, I'm again fitting with my philosophy of a nobody from nowhere. So I know I'm a gnome, and for some reason my goddamn Facebook and Instagram feed kept showing me those Rambo shovels. You ever see those shovels that are like foldable, and you unscrew the top and a dagger comes out and you push a button here? It was like the shovel of many buttons, like that rod of whatever the hell in
rod of many parts or
rod
something
of many
like
parts. Yeah. Remember that rod? You press a button, it turns into a million different things. It was like the shovel. It was like the Rambo shovel. So I'm like, you know what? He doesn't use a weapon. He uses a shovel as a weapon. So I'm like, he's going to have a badass shovel. I even drew a picture. I found, I merged two pictures and made a little gnome holding one of those Superman shovels there. I said, he's going to be a shovel. Then I'm like, all right, so it's a city campaign. So what does my guy do? He's a gnome. He's a nobody from nowhere, and he has a shovel. And I'm like, he's a sewer worker. He works in the sewer. That's his day job. And at night, he was a thief, but he never stole shit. He was a scavenger. He was a tinkerer.
You're more of a scavenger,
so I scavenged stuff that I could on the way home from work, and I go to the bar and get the cheapest swill with the most poor people in the world and talk about the bullshit tragedies of life and all those little tiny details that you wove into that. The neighbors and the tenement house and the kids and caring about the neighborhood. I felt like, this Snickle's going to be like the Godfather, going back to our original topic, taking care of these people. Damn it. He just needs to get some, he couldn't beat them up, but he had some smarts. Right. So, So and it just grew from there. These tiny little details, it really took the adventure in a whole different direction I ever would have thought it went, Now, but my concern is that at the end of Loki's video here, he's talking about actually changing. And instead of doing any long form stories, unless you have, because it says long form stories, again, he's back to stories. I think that's the main problem. He's running stories. They don't work unless you have the same consistent players. And get people dropping in, leaving this and that all the time in a game. So it's hard to do. So he thinks he's going to start running more short form adventures like Conan, Rescue the Princess from a Cyclops, things that take a few weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And then all the party gets rewarded by the king with titles and blah, blah, blah. So he's talking about essentially running the long module. You know what I mean? Just one short story rather than a long campaign arc story.
Right. But think about it, Joe. It's like, okay, so what he's doing is what I call episodal campaigns.
Yeah.
So you're using the same thing through there. But that's what I've done with your Snickle too.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that on purpose. I run short stuff, through there. And have you felt that it's been difficult because of that, or like because I to me I think it's a very good. It's not a one size fits all by any means, but I think it's a very good format for people who really like their characters and want to continue going with it. Because I was thinking he was missing. He could do that with the current party he had.
Yeah.
It's like he had him in there, but he could just jump to another episode
Yeah.
of it. And now it's like a year later, and maybe part of I don't know, something's happened, and they're called to action once again. So
I think that instead of the approach that he's taking, which is running a 4-week campaign and then roll up new characters, and then we'll have another 4-week campaign. If he could, instead of doing it like that.
Well, that's not an episodal campaign.
That's not an episodal campaign. It's just a short campaign. It's a Conan the Barbarian short story, and that's what the solution is. And I felt bad because I'm like, oh, dude, don't sacrifice what could be a grand campaign arc lasting years just because you don't have the right players. Instead, look for the right players. Look for a match. Look for dedicated people. And I don't know how old he is, but he looks young. He looks younger than us. There's no wrinkles and gray hair on his right. So he's
you just got a thing for guys with Irish accents.
Is he Irish?
I think that's.
I don't know. He's got a British accent, but he's younger than us. So I'm imagining his player group isn't old, right? They're probably about the same age or younger, right?
Yeah, I'd say
And that jumps us back to the whole attention span thing that we talked about in the article and everything earlier. I mean, he may have to, in order to run the kind of campaign he seems to be evolving towards wanting to run, he may just want to find an older group of people who are more regimented in their schedule. They're not going to bars, not having the social life of a 28-year-old. Find an older group and get out there and offer to DM that group. And if you get a bunch of 40-something-year-old, 50-something-year-old, 60-something-year-old guys who are just willing to show up on a Saturday night because it's Saturday night. What the hell else am I going to do? Right. That's kind of why we all play on a regular day, So, and I was 28. You couldn't find me in the same bar one Saturday to the other, but I would guarantee you I wasn't home.
Right. That definitely got to be.
It is. I mean, I agree. Climbing the mountain there, finding long-term players is difficult these days with any age. But I think you might have a better shot at it just because of older people.
Well, I mean, he mentioned something that he's using to find more players, or there was some site that he was using for games and everything. Because there's so many places. I mean, any social media thing probably has a find some players group or app or something like that.
I think they all got it. And even if you just post the board, especially with Roll20 or other online apps, you could just play with anybody around the world. But I think GM Grimlore says he needs to find the right group for the game he wants.
That's the thing, because it's not so much finding players; it's finding the right players they kind of want to do the same game you want to run. Yeah, because there's always a lot of talk about what the players want to run, but if you're the GM, you've got to like it more than anybody.
Absolutely. If you don't like what you're running, you might as well just stop the game. And I've done that before, because it wasn't due to the players; it was more due to I'm not delivering what I thought I was going to be delivering here, and I'm not liking it. I don't want to force people to play a game that I'm not happy about, because if I'm not happy about what I'm DMing or how I'm DMing, for whatever reason I mess something up, they're not going to be happy, right? And so you can't, as a DM, you cannot be happy running a game that you dislike. It's going to show in the game. The players aren't going to like it,
And hopefully the players know enough if they don't like something, they don't get into the game either.
Well, I think there's a marriage that goes on. There's this courtship phase, right? When you're early.
Well, like Rob, Rob and I go back for ever and ever there. Yeah. And when he runs Traveler, I'm out because I just don't like Traveler. Never have. I even had the original 3-book, but I just never liked it. And I've tried it a couple times, but I know enough that if he wants to run that campaign, that I'll give up my chair for someone else who wants to play Traveler, because it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like GM Grimlore is saying that he says some of those sites are good.
Sure.
He says on those sites, but players are quite odd. I had trouble finding players online. It's like, all right.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, this hobby definitely gathers odd folks.
Yeah. I think the level of some level of being on the spectrum on some degree is much higher in the RPG hobby for some reason. At least one spectrum or another.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, and then it's also become like a mental health refuge hobby also.
Yeah, it is.
And so you'll get some folks who come in that are not completely great, skilled at social interaction and stuff. So when things go bad for them, then they go really bad.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things, and especially if it's a stranger, then you don't know the nuances, especially if you're not face to face. It's so hard to really have an interaction with somebody that you don't know, like on a sub level. So if you know that they're having, because like I know when like Rob's having a bad day or is tired, just by looking at him, I can tell, like when you came into the game the other day, you didn't have to say a thing. I already knew you were baked and caked and everything else.
I was ready.
And you were coming in, you had broken out the rum or something, and you were coming in hot.
Came in hot. Yeah, that's what it was. I just watched Almost Famous with my nephew. Right. So we spent, it was the extended bootleg cut, like 2 hours and 48 minutes or some shit. So there's a good kid who could sit there, and he didn't look at his phone as much. He really enjoyed the movie. So that's how I judge how much he liked it, how much times he looks at his phone while the movie's playing, But it was a good time. And so I basically like, finally a celebration. My brother bought me a really, really good rum. And I've been just sampling it on special occasions. And I'm like, this is a special occasion. After 5 years, I'm finally watching this movie with him, So I broke it out, and it was like, God, that was a good rum. It was real smooth. Didn't realize how smooth it was. So,
a little too smooth. Huh?
I came in. I slid right into that chair. Yeah. No,
so what would you like? So what would you tell Loki to to help him save his campaign then?
First and foremost, have the talk. Have the talk at the beginning about, listen, you're going to have character death. Have the talk about, and if you can't handle that, this isn't the game for you. Have the talk about your backstory can be 5 sentences long, max. You are a nobody from nowhere with no special abilities, and nothing about your backstory gives you anything special. And if they don't, all right, so that's 2 things. So start with a room of 100 people. You say the first thing, 50 leave. You say the second thing, another 20 leave, right? And so you just, with each thing you say in your preface, you're going to whittle away until you get those 4 or 5 people that you actually want. But at the outset, you need to actually say those sorts of things. And then in terms of the campaign you're going to be running, tell them the setting comes first. So your choices of class and race and everything else, and your dream goals of whatever the hell for your character, no, it's got to fit within the campaign. Therefore, you can't play the half tabaxi, half Fomor lock pick specialist. It's not going to happen. And so once you get that out of the way, you've lost a lot of people that if you had that conversation, he might have been able to avoid this campaign shit in the bed, right? So now you've got the group of people in there. Now it's up to the DM to make something that works for that group of people that also works for him in terms of the game he wants to run. So my concern, he was playing a long campaign that had a story. You don't need to have any sort of story at the outset, Loki. All you need to do is have a rough idea of the sandbox you're playing in. Okay, have maybe some plot hooks, some beginning, middle, and end big things that might happen in your world. You, Loki, are in charge of your world's story, and as a subset of that, you're in charge of that country's story, that region's story, and that town's story. Those things are going to happen regardless of what these players do. As the players get high enough level, they might be able to influence the town's story. When they hit 10th level, maybe they can influence the region's story. When they hit 15th level, maybe they can influence the country's story. But you need to be an historical fiction writer, basically, figuring out what's going on in that world. Now, once you have all that crap going on, they have to be in, short-term, long-term, extremely long-term, you then can insert the players into your starting town, and you have a few things going on there, and maybe a lost tomb, some little lore, some history, and give them some hooks and see where they want to go with it. But you got to make it apparent to them that they need to be self-directed, right? Now, any sort of story that emerges from that, because that's the word, emergent storytelling. You're not telling a story up front. You're not putting them on a railroad. You're not predetermining any sort of an outcome. That is the doom of your campaign. If you know from day one how this campaign is going to end, shut the book, forget about DMing. It ain't good. That's no good. You need to just figure out what story emerges with your players. I think it's a lot of DMs are coming into this game, reading this big book of rules, trying to figure it all out. Like, we had the big book of rules too, first edition, but we couldn't figure it out because it was written in fucking Gygaxian. Nothing made sense.
It was, and no one was proficient.
Nobody understood it, right? It was like, it was this constant esoteric fucking search for meaning, and you couldn't figure shit out. But what you could do, all right, what you could do is make, talk to your friends, read Dragon Magazine, get hints, get tips, and make the thing work for you and your group, right? That's what you need to do, Loki. Just make it work for you and your group. Don't think of an ending. Let the ending emerge as they keep doing what they do. Think of an ending for the world, for the country, for the region, for the city. Think of those endings, because what the players do or don't do may affect or may not affect those things. You need to know what's going on there, and that makes your world rich and interactive, right? And so as this game commences, as it goes through from game to game, you can do your short story Conan style things within that. You can do your 3 or 4 week or 6 week game, your little campaign. But you got to be prepared for the players to, after you spent, a month and a half working on that thing, your players say, we'll just stick with maybe do 2 rooms of this. Let's go find something else. All right. But it doesn't matter. You created it. You could reskin it for something else later. You know what I mean?
Okay. Then what made you quit your Bronze Age campaign?
I fucked up with the gods. I created a world, civilizations, regions, and everything else with the Bronze Age game. And I wanted it to be not religious in any way.
Right.
And I wanted magic, and just, the history of what happened there with the mages and blah, 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 to be the predominant thing. But I messed up in not having any real gods there, because it was such a defining feature of the Bronze Age, the superstitious beliefs, the rituals, the customs. You can't have a Bronze. That all my game was a low tech D&D game. There was nothing Bronze Age and feel about it without their religious primitive beliefs, and I fucked that up. And so once I had created all this shit, developed the world without gods and cultures without gods and history without gods, then I had something that I wasn't happy with the way it was running. I'm like, this doesn't feel like Bronze Age. Well, no shit, Sherlock. There's no fucking gods. And so rather than rewrite the thing, I moved on to something else, and I'll use the Bronze Age, especially the equipment stuff, the breakage rules for fumbles and crits for the gear. I liked that. I liked what came out of it. And I liked some of the sub magic systems I created because I created a new type of mage, and I liked what I did with that stuff. But I'll use it somewhere, But that was where I messed up. That was where I messed up.
All right, then what was the reason why you stopped? Not to bring up your five. Was it five lakes?
The five lakes thing.
Lakes.
The 5 lakes thing.
Because I was wondering, because I was watching Loki, and he's ending his campaign for reasons, and I was wondering what yours were then for these 2 examples.
The 5 lakes campaign, I think we lost player steam because I wasn't good enough DMing at it. I had something in my head of how I thought it would evolve or play.
So you had a story in your head?
No, not a story, more like a feel. A feel. Okay. I had a feel of what I wanted that thing to be, and I couldn't make it work in the game. I wanted to create, it's sort of like a movie maker, a filmmaker who wants to have a movie that gives a certain emotional resonance with people, right? And then once you're done with it, you watch the movie and like, that's not the emotional resonance I want, that I predicted, wanted, or I'm happy with. And it just didn't go for me.
Right.
And that was the gist of it, I think, and I think because I couldn't get something engaging, emotionally engaging, basically that was it. My failure as a DM to make it emotionally engaging for the players. The players weren't that much into it, and it just sort of fizzled because
that was the one that I played, that kind of low functioning kid, right?
Yeah, who got bit by the werewolf and all that kind
of stuff. I had a blast in that one.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was having a good time with my guy.
I forget who else was in it, but I don't want to call out names anyway. I got a sense that they weren't. Yeah,
I think I was there for but I did have just so you know, I did have fun with that one.
That's good.
I
I'm
mean,
glad.
I didn't know where it was going, but I was okay with that because remember,
Yeah.
I like to play my guy, and my guy had like what a
Mhm.
6 intelligence or something like that.
Yeah, he was kind of stupid.
Yeah. So, but he just reacted what was in front of him. He didn't think beyond what was in front of him.
Yeah.
So it didn't
Made my
make
life
any difference. It made your life easy.
As a DM, that made my life really easy, man.
Yeah, but it was actually fun to explore the character. I mean, as much as we don't do backstory and stuff like that, I had a small hook that I got it on.
Yeah.
And he became like what the village idiot pets
Yeah,
kind
everybody
of
looked
thing.
out for him a little bit.
And
Yeah.
looked out for me, and I tried to help them out as much as I could, and it became a thing that you developed through the village, and I liked that. And then I went on a big trip, and I didn't know where the hell I was at. You know, I got so far away from home, I didn't know where I was at. And, yeah, kind of thing. So but I get what you're saying there. Okay, I thought that was it for the 5 valleys, but I wasn't sure. So.
Yeah, that's what you thought it was. I just didn't get to what I was looking for out of it.
I almost think it was I think it was your first real attempt at a campaign beyond the one you were running with your brother, and I think maybe your expectations were so high.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you've been running that one at that time for what, like 4
years at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had so much work, so much time, so much invest in that. Then you went off into a new one, and it's sort of like,
yeah, it wasn't as interesting. The region wasn't as interesting as I wanted it to be. That's the other thing I learned from that, is that I had stuff in my head that was out there going on as a potential, probably over here, maybe that over there, right? But I made a self-contained region, the 5 River Valley, whatever the hell I called it.
Yeah, something. There was a big
5 lakes.
5 lakes.
5 Lakes Valley. And it was, you never even got to this part of it, but it was self-contained after like an apocalypse. And so they survived. And you would have found out what happened long-term to the rest of the world. But I wanted a small sandbox because I didn't feel confident enough to run a worldwide sandbox. Right. And so I ran the worldwide sandbox, the one with my brother, because I had a world that was there that I just played with and broke. There was already components of that world there. When I created the 5 Lakes campaign, I just created from scratch. There was nothing there. I wrote a map. I'd made up the world. I made up the history. There was nothing else there. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to do this small campaign in a self-contained area. I'm limiting my sandbox, and I'm going to do something here. Now, it wasn't big enough. You know, I think if I had more things to play with, I could have made it more interesting, but I should have written more. And I learned that lesson, and I applied that lesson to the new campaign we're running now. I have a bigger region. I have way more shit going on. I stole the foundation of a map from the Forgotten Realms, an area that nothing is really developed for it, because I wanted a region in the middle of nowhere that, you know, basically I could play with the way I want. I can make it my own. Right. So I just wanted this huge outdoor area. So I have a much bigger region with way more going on, way more complexity. I have the freaking trading routes and what they trade with each other within subgroups. I needed to have that, you know, in order to give myself that level of like, it gives me confidence that I could riff off of things, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, speaking of a music analogy, I think I might have said this before at some point or another, but when you're coming into D&D and the complex rules, like, you know, first edition, it's too complex to figure out in High Gygaxian. When now they've mastered in 50 years the art of writing a PHB and a DMG, right? And so you read this thing, and it's well written, well laid out, makes sense, logical. Everything about it is clear and concise. There is no anything outside the lines. It's all there for you to use and understand. And if you have a question, it's in the book, right? And that's like classical music. The OSR is like jazz, right? And I want to run more jazz. I want to run games with more jazz than classical, and that's kind of what I like. And so I just need, in order to play jazz, I need to have more toys to play jazz with. That's why I needed to make a bigger world in the 5 Lakes campaign setting. That makes sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. What's your next thing, man? What are you going to be doing next in terms of your own games? I know you've been bouncing some ideas I keep hearing, but I don't know what you're going to be doing. When are you going to be doing it? What is it?
Actually, I thought eventually you and I would do the final chapter of Snickle.
Really?
So, yeah,
Snickle lives.
Snickle lives. So
did he get his strength back? Is he better than a 2 strength or whatever the hell he ended with?
We'll talk about that part. But so his, like the guy we were talking about earlier, Snickle, the guy who's a digger. This will be his fourth campaign, then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think
your
so.
Your first one was by yourself.
Yep.
Your second one was when Scorn burnt down.
Yep.
And then the third one was with the party up in Hound's Head.
Yes.
So this fourth one, we're going to have like the final act of Snickle and everything.
That sounds ominous, dude.
Yeah. Well, it was
the final act
because there's more for him. There's more meat on that bone too.
Yeah, those tiny little gnome bones.
Yeah. So he's fascinated me in a way as a GM.
Really?
Yeah, because he's taken like the gnome and just his. Because think about it, Snickle has never been the hero anywhere through this, but he's survived it all.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been through some shit that I never thought you would get through. But it's cool that you were able to get your way through. And the other thing is you didn't play a mage, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Of course, I think I killed your first mage within a.
I remember diving through a window because the firefight outside was so fierce with my 2 hit point ass or whatever. So I dived through a window of a hut, and inside the hut's the boss mob that kills me within a. I was like, fuck.
You fell victim to a kill box. Yeah.
Yep.
But no, I think the nice thing about doing these campaigns is now when you encounter stuff and you bring back these characters and they're interacting, they already have that historical value to it.
Yeah.
And then that way, when I bring up somebody's name, I might have to remind you, but you know the experience you there.
Yep.
And it just makes the campaign. That's when almost the story, I don't want to say story, but the story of the character develops on its own. It's nothing I'm planning.
Yeah,
it emerges.
It's not a background. I could never have written this as a backstory. If you told me, hey, make up a 6th level thief and write a backstory for him so that he has something coming into it, I would never have been able to write this shit.
Right.
No, you can't make that up, man. You can't make that up. And it's better than anything I could have written.
And then the next thing about it too is if it's just you and I, we're doing the one-on-one to do the final chapter or whatever. It's much easier to schedule and sweep a couple hours and that kind of thing. So that helps out because I don't know how steady of time I can get right now. But eventually, I have some other things in the hopper, but that's really my next. I don't know if I want to call it a huge project, but next thing I want to kind of advance on.
Once we get going with it, maybe we knock the rust off the wheels.
Thanks,
and cogs.
Have a good night.
Take it easy, Mike. Yeah, once we get the knock the rust off the wheels and cogs. Once we get going, maybe we get the live stream of a bit of it or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
That could be fun.
Yeah, you could see a one-on-one game or something.
One-on-one, because there are not too many that happen. I mean, I don't mind them at all. I think you get more intense role playing.
Yeah,
you get more intensity. There's no time where the attention is not on you. Where you're not thinking. Everything that is said relates to your PC, right? And so you're constantly invested in what the hell is going on around you. You ask a lot of questions. You're really into it. Then once you take that mentality that you did in your one-on-one campaign that lasted several years, take it to a group, you're a much better player because you're always on. That becomes your default mode. You're always on. You're always there. You're always present. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun, man. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all. And maybe since they're in the same town with Kojak, they may be a little fun. Little adventure together could be interesting.
I would just be playing with yourself.
Hey.
I don't want to stream that.
Yeah, we don't want to stream that. But I couldn't think of a more unlikely duo, could you? Of the 2 characters I've run.
Yeah.
Kojak, the dwarf who just you're over the top stereotypical dwarf fighter. He's just a badass. He runs the town, he has a super sword or axe or what the hell it was. I forget.
Hammer.
Hammer, yes.
Yeah,
he just got to leave, and he leaves town.
Checks the boxes of dwarven stereotype in so many different ways. Yeah,
all of them. But he did earn it too. You know what I mean? He wasn't just an actor. He wasn't role playing. This guy been through some shit too. You know, he's like the grizzled warrior, and Snickle's like somebody out of The Walking Dead. He survived.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
You know, it's like Jesus Christ. Yeah. That'd be interesting. Doing a little adventure with them once. That'd be fun. But anyhow, we went on an adventure tonight for about an hour and 20 minutes, man. That was cool. That was cool. And before the next time we do this, guys, you might see a couple test screenings of me going live at like 2 a.m. when no one's around, just to see if the freaking sound works. You know, so I got to figure out how to do this sound. If it comes down to it that I have to not use the headset or something, we'll have to figure that out too. I don't think the sound quality will be as good, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out before next time. I had no idea there was a secret to this. This is what you learn when you're new to this bullshit, huh? You know, worked out. Ended up reading the transcript, and we're all good. But yeah. 13's still watching. I can't believe it, unless they just passed out like Tom. You know, they're just sleeping.
Well, it is.
Yeah, looking like my picture here of Johnny Fever. You know, they're all just sitting there, just snoring away.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them. Yeah,
God.
But I appreciate everybody coming, hanging out with us, and we'll be back next Monday, and I don't know what topics we'll have, but
no, me either. Be interesting.
Sure, we'll have something coming up.
It helps to have this every week, because then I have to actually focus my attention on what's going on in the greater RPG industry hobby thing. I feel like a little bit like Eric here. You know what I mean? I got to pay attention to shit to have some content.
I have been watching more YouTube videos about games. Guys, so hard to get through some of them though.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know. There's not too many good ones out there. That's unfortunate.
That's probably what they're saying about us.
Oh yeah. I know. How do you get through an hour and 22 minutes of these two assholes?
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but Loki's Lair. Thanks, Loki, for letting us talk about it. And
no, it's good
video. I recommend his channel, Loki's Lair. Just do a YouTube search for Loki's Lair. You'll find him. Long hair British dude, looks about 30 years younger than me and Tim. So. All right.
Not wrong. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Thanks everybody for listening this long, and we'll see you next Monday.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.